Hello, friends. Unfortunately, many of us are used to thinking that rich and famous people are often far away from the common people, and therefore are not able to feel all the hardships of life inherent in the unfortunate inhabitants of our planet. Yes, exactly unfortunate, friends, because today we will talk about a simple guy whose hometown was hit by a terrible natural disaster, which went down in history as the biggest tsunami and which shocked millions of people. No one knows how this story would have ended if a global star hadn't been there to help. So I think you might have guessed from the title that his name is Cristiano Ronaldo. But first things first. Martunis was a common child of an Indonesian family with many children who lived in the town of Banda Aceh. The 7-year-old's main hobby was football. It was while playing football with his friends on one of the fields that he suddenly heard a strange and piercing noise that was accompanied by violent shocks. He immediately rushed home when he realized something was wrong. By then, his frightened parents hurriedly gathered their most precious belongings, and 5 minutes later, they left the house. But the disaster had caught the family in its tracks as they were trying to escape the torrents of water by climbing onto their car. And with that first strong wave, everyone was literally swept away in different directions. The last thing little Martunis remembered was the face of his mother, who tried in vain to grab her still very young daughter, and looking ahead, that was the last time he saw his mother and his brothers and sisters. The world would later know that the 26th of December 2004 tsunami, which was triggered by the third biggest earthquake in history, struck 12 countries, Indonesia being one of them. The province of Aceh, where Martunis lived, was the first to be hit by 30-meter waves, destroying almost the entire regional capital, and our hero was in the epicenter of it all. The frightened boy, regaining consciousness from the strong current of water, managed to cling to a tree that the elements uprooted, and then climbed onto a nearby floating sofa, which essentially became an island in a sea of palm trees, boats, houses, and everything that was once the city. After a while, when the water calmed down, Martunis found himself in God knows where, unaware of what lay ahead. And indeed, having survived one of the worst disasters in human history, the boy now had another equally simple task: to survive the aftermath in order to finally set foot on safe ground. Looking ahead, I would say that the next 3 weeks of drifting in that chaos would have seemed like hell to anyone, let alone a 7-year-old boy who can't swim, was forced to live on that very couch without food or water, protecting himself from the heat and rain. Unwilling to give up, Martunis ate noodles from packages that floated by, drank rainwater, or tried to catch anything resembling food until, at some point, the couch washed up on the coast. On the shore, the boy had to wander around for a long time in search of people, and during this time, he became very thin and, of course, weakened. It's hard to say what would have happened to Martunis next, but fortunately, after 20 days of trying, he was rewarded for his endurance in the form of a rescue. A group of British journalists were flying over the island to report on the aftermath of the tsunami, when suddenly they saw a young boy on the island. The journalists first got the emaciated boy drunk, and half an hour later, he was in the hospital. Later, the medics would say that if the exhausted boy had spent at least one more day on the island, there would have been less chance of survival. At the same time, the boy stated that at that moment, he wasn't afraid of anything, and his only wish was to meet his family and fulfill his childhood dream, to become a football player. As it turned out, in the hospital, the boy managed to find his grandfather and father, who had also managed to survive the disaster. But the ordeal didn't end there. Having lost their loved ones, they had nowhere to go back to, as they had no roof over their heads, and all they could do was hope for a miracle. And as strange as it may sound, it soon happened. The fact is that when a report about the rescue of a boy wearing the uniform of a Portuguese footballer called Rui Costa was shown on Portuguese television, an emotional wave of solidarity swept through the country, which not only made Martunis a hero of the football world, but also drew the attention of the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo, a major star of world football. The then still young football star was blown away by the lad's story and literally found the money within days so that the lad's father, named Sabrini, could rebuild their family home. He even paid for Martunis' secondary school education. But as it would turn out later, that was just the beginning. It was on Cristiano's initiative that the Portuguese Football Federation invited the 7-year-old hero to the Portugal-Slovakia match 5 months later, paying all the expenses for the child to travel to Europe with his father. In Lisbon, Martunis even led the Portuguese national team onto the pitch, and Sabrini received a grant of as much as 40,000 euros in humanitarian aid. When I saw the story, I knew I had the duty to help this boy, because he is an example to many people, proving that any difficulties can be overcome. He's a special kid, Ronaldo said modestly after the match. It would seem that the footballer's kind gesture could have ended there. The camera showed the hero and the story went around the world. But as it turned out, Ronaldo didn't do it for the hype. It wasn't long before he personally visited the boy's family in Indonesia. When Ronaldo arrived in the boy's hometown, the first thing he did was to visit the places most affected by the tsunami, having previously written checks for a large sum of money to over 100 families. Of course, the dear guest was given a warm welcome in Indonesia. But most importantly, the little Martunis traveled with Ronaldo and was treated warmly by the football star, becoming a little brother to him. I will never leave Martunis. He has become my family, man. And to make it easier for us to communicate, I gave him a new mobile phone with my number on it, Cristiano later told reporters. It's not known how many times the two spoke on the phone, but 3 years later, Cristiano came to visit the boy again, filling up his phone book with the numbers of other Portuguese players, advising the boy to train as much as possible and study English. There was no doubt that Ronaldo's words were firmly planted in the boy's mind, for since then, he has literally slept with the ball, becoming even a local star of the football school. And all this wasn't because of an acquaintance with a footballer, but through hard training. But despite the good results, the youngster had little muscle mass in his body. At one point, even his father stopped believing in success, suggesting that he should join the police academy, but Martunis knew well what his vocation was. Not wanting to rest on his laurels, the lad worked hard on his shortcomings, and one day, fate smiled on him once again. Watching the matches of local teams, Sporting Lisbon scout was able to discern great potential in the guy, and after a while, offered him a contract in the youth academy of the Portuguese Grande. Of course, having received such an offer, Martunis was over the moon. But the only thing that upset the lad was that his father wouldn't be able to go with him. The family was extremely poor and couldn't financially afford to live in Portugal, let alone rent or buy a house. And at a time when the kid's fate was still in doubt, Cristiano Ronaldo reappeared in the family's life. Yes, friends, what happened next was something no one expected. After hearing about his old friend's success, Cristiano decided to congratulate him on his first ever professional contract, and now the gift was something more serious than a mobile phone. After inviting the lad and his father to a meeting, Ronaldo presented the Martunis family with a posh house in Portugal, considering his gift quite fair in return for the efforts the lad had shown all along the way. I'm grateful to Cristiano for all that he has done. He changed my life and didn't ask for anything in return, said the youngster, who even took his surname, becoming Martunis Ronaldo. Although Martunis' career as a professional footballer didn't work out, his life has changed for the better. Now the guy is 24 years old, but he's still involved in football matters. He runs several football channels and his personal blog. In addition, he's a good friend of Ronaldo and sees him often, and Cristiano considers him his little brother. Few people knew about this story, but for the past 11 years, the Portuguese has been in regular contact with his mentee, and the main driving force behind his action was humanity. If you have a lot of money, you should always help those in need. I would like to point out that Ronaldo's record includes more than one such act, because having climbed to the top of the Olympus, everyone should remember where he started, and Cristiano himself also started from the lowest levels. Friends, how do you personally feel about the player's action, and in general, about the whole story? Be sure to write your opinion in the comments. And that's all for today. If you haven't done so, please subscribe to our channel and hit that like button if you enjoyed this video. And please watch our other videos as well. We'll see you soon.